Welcome to the Airflow Podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Thomas, and this is the place where Kingdom heirs go to be informed and inspired. So sit back, relax, and flow with me. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Airflow Podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Thomas. I just want to thank everybody for joining today as we, took a little break last week. And I took a little break last week to spend time with the family, prepare things and get ready for Thanksgiving and just hanging out with the family, which is always a blessing. We had, a lot of people able to come over to our home. My wife's side of the family, my in-laws, my side of the family was there, able to come by for a bit. We even had a chance to host a couple of kids from my son's high school. They're from the Bahamas, so we had them. So we had a house full, but it was fun. I definitely was blessed, and the topic this week is really going to tie into that. Because during this time, I was really sitting, everybody talks about what they're thankful for. And, I think I was watching TV and probably fell asleep or just in a downtime where I was just sitting there, just in my thoughts. And I remember just thinking thankful and grateful, like what's the difference? Is there a difference? I was asking God about it, like, man, what's the difference between being thankful and being grateful? Because during this time of Thanksgiving, everybody's talking about all these things that they're thankful for. And, that's really what it should be about. But we know the original holiday, and, I'm not going to give a history lesson on this. We know that it wasn't just this great celebration of eating food between the Pilgrims and Indians, and that was it. We know it was more than that. So I'm not going to go into all that. I'm sure my indigenous people, know the story. We know the story. So that's not what it is about. But it is a time for us to sit back and really celebrate each other, celebrate family, spending time together over a great meal. Hopefully everybody got a chance to eat and I know I did. And, I'm in a place right now where I'm like, okay, I've got to shed that weight because I ate a lot. I enjoyed my time off. But I had already started that process long before that. So I want to finish out this calendar year pretty strong and move into the next phase. But just getting back to the whole process and the whole thought process around, thankful versus grateful. And so in looking at the difference and just understanding, why people go through and look at grateful and thankful. A lot of people usually have those words. They use those words interchangeably. And I think it's kind of natural because there are some similarities between the two. But it's and most of the time people use those words, grateful and thankful, to express appreciation. But there's a difference. So now, if you look up the definition of grateful, and you can use Merriam-Webster's dictionary, they describe grateful as being appreciative of benefits received. So again, grateful is described as being appreciative of benefits received. And then if you look up thankful, it's defined as being conscious of benefits received. So, one is being appreciative, one is just being conscious of it. But if you think about being grateful or having gratitude, it's really deeper than that. It's much more complex. It's got more layers than just being thankful. If you look at it, when you're grateful, if you're feeling grateful, your state of gratitude, it doesn't just focus on one specific action or performing one action. It kind of embodies a general state of thankfulness. So, to break it down a little bit more, you can look at gratefulness as sort of the result of many small positive actions that come together to really shape, your mindset towards appreciation. So, you can think of some examples like, you've got a sick friend you hear about, and you go back and you reflect on your life, and you're grateful for your health. Now, some people may look at that and say, oh, well, that's kind of messed up. But I mean, when you go through times of tragedy, when people are sick, people are hurt, if you were in a situation where you're like, man, that could have been me, I'm so grateful. And you start reflecting on all the times that God has kept you, it's not to talk down, but you do express a level of gratitude, or just, or great, feeling grateful for where you're at that point in time. Something as simple as, if you got to reschedule a meeting at the last minute due to a family emergency, you know, you'll feel grateful for the other meeting attendees if they're understanding of your last minute crisis, so at that point in time, you're having to reschedule this meeting. You're the person who owns the meeting. You set the meeting, and at the last minute, you got to drop it off. Say I can't do this meeting. Well, people may have prepared for it, and you want to make sure, like, hey, we know family things happen. We get it. We understand. Go take care of your business. And this is what people in the meeting most of the time what they will say if you let them know what the situation is. You feel grateful for that, because they could have easily turned that into, a witch hunt and, gone after you and, made it a big deal. And I've had situations like that. I've had meetings where I was sitting there, people prepared for it, and not just people in my department, other people. And I had a legitimate family emergency and I had to reschedule the meeting. And, I let them know some of the details. Obviously, don't want to get too personal in a professional setting, but I let them know kind of some basic things of what's going on. And it was just like, hey, if you need some time, we can either, have somebody else lead it if you want. If you got somebody prepared, we can definitely reschedule it, take care of your family and da, da, da. And I felt grateful at that point, because you start thinking like, man, I'm happy and I'm appreciative that I work with such great people who understand that these things matter, because I've been in situations where people don't think about that kind of stuff. I've had managers who didn't care about personal business. They were just strictly like, well, if you either have to be on this meeting or, it's going to be some problems, so I've had some of that. Obviously another example of feeling grateful, or a grateful expression is, going to, not even going to, but, watching things about third world countries. So if you look at a third world country, and everybody, you always think about, back in the day when you had to feed the children campaigns, and they're showing, these kids from these other countries, and they're like they're malnourished. They're just skin and bones, flies all on them. And you're like, man, they have to go through all of this and you've got to have this big push, this big, sort of charity push to just get them clean water in a meal. It's like for 25 cents a day, you can provide clean water and this and that for, this one child. And you think about that and you're like, man, as bad as, as whatever challenges you go through, it's like, you start thinking back and you feel grateful that, I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have to think through, about at least water, or I didn't have to think about the air I breathe, it's going to kill me, or, I'm not saying there aren't other things that, you had to kind of go through a survival mode with, but, just thinking through that. Another thing that I know I've had these thoughts and conversations with myself and with God is, all of us have had, if you've worked any kind of job, you've had a rough day at work. And, at some point, what I do once I have my little pity party is, I kind of look at things and I say, you know what? I'm thankful, God, that I have this job, because there are tons of people who have been unemployed. I mean, I think about just recently as last year when the pandemic hit. I mean, I've seen so many people lose their jobs that I work with, furloughed, and I mean furloughed to the point where they're not getting any money, or just not working at all, just jobs gone. And I go back and I start thinking about, man, what am I complaining about? I mean, yeah, things can be tough, but I have a job. And if I don't like the job, then it's up to me to fix it, to fix my situation, to get help, seek God for guidance. But I can't just sit there and complain all day, because I mean, the job that I had at that point was the job I prayed for. The job that I have now is the job I prayed for. And I know everybody's like, yeah, you go through. Yeah, I go through those moments. I really do. I go through those moments where it's tough, like anybody, we're human, right? We go through those situations where, it feels like things are piling up. You're trying to balance that, work and home situation. And that's always, that's always can be a challenge, right? Trying to make sure that you're taking care of your job, and then you're taking care of your family at home. And, that's why a lot of times it's just like I seek God, because I'm like, okay, you gave me all of this. I know you didn't give me this for me to struggle or for me to be challenged the way I feel like I am. So, help me with this. I appreciate the job. And you think about it again, you're like, man, I asked for this. May not have asked for all the struggles or the challenges, but I'm here for a reason. So let me get out my feelings. And again, everybody gets in their feelings, but get out my feelings and let me move on. So that's really when you really start thinking about and talking about just grateful. Those are some things that, that happens from a grateful state. It's multiple things, that just lead you into really that form of appreciation that you have. Now, in looking at thankfulness, it's like a specific kind of act that you engage in after you receive a benefit. So, thankfulness differs from gratitude. It is really in a lot of ways. One which is that it's commonly associated with materialism, which is not characteristic of people who practice gratitude. So, when somebody gives you, hands you a plate at dinner, says, here you go, let me give you a plate, you're thankful, right? You're thankful for that action. But it's usually based off of one thing, one specific thing. And there's some studies that have shown that people who recognize themselves to have a low tendency towards materialistic habits, they report that they're more grateful than those who recognize their sense of materialism. And materialism in this point is not saying that we're not saying that, it's a bad thing, but it's just saying that you focused, your feeling of appreciation is based off of single acts of somebody doing something to benefit you. And that's a little different. It's a little different. So when you look at thankfulness, it's really and often a fleeting response that you have when somebody does something very specific for you, and or they give you a specific gift, like I mentioned. Hey, here's a $5 bill. I want to give you this $5 for whatever reason. Or here's a gift card to this. And you're like, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And that's sort of that one time, here's something specifically to benefit you. So it's like if somebody, you walk into a building, somebody holds the door open for you. You're thankful in that situation. You get a Christmas or birthday present. You're thankful. If somebody says, the shirt that you're wearing is nice, like this Billionaire Flow shirt, shameless plug. And I'll put a pin note in there for those that don't know. This episode is also going to be uploaded onto our Airflow YouTube page. So, youtube.com, search for Airflow Podcast, and the video for this will be up there. So I'm going to really get back into focusing on building more content and having videos of the guests that I bring on, as well as the podcast that I do for myself. So that's just a side note. But um, if someone tells you that they like the shirt you're wearing, or they compliment you on your outfit or something like that, you know, it is you feel thankful in that moment. But when you look at it, none of those things really truly benefit you long term. So that's kind of what puts you in a thankful category. It's kind of a short term deal. So if you want to switch gears to really think about it from a religious standpoint, many religions have taught that living with a sense of gratitude is really a critical part of leading a good life. I've talked about the good life, living a good life. Have an episode called The Good Life. But unlike people who view gratitude today, religions often refer to it solely as a need to feel thanks for a higher power. So, again, when you start looking at it from a religious standpoint, gratitude is really a central focal point, or a central point, or a focal point for, the basis of most religions. And this, what I read is that, they look at it and say, when you feel gratitude, it's your thanks towards God. And this is not just for Christians. This is, Islam and, other religions, but that sense of gratitude is mostly towards, what the higher power that person and that religion worships, what they give to them is gratitude, to say thank you for what you've done. In Christianity, a lot of times, it is, we're saying thanks, but I think in a lot of times we're really saying it from the standpoint of, we're gracious, we feel gratitude, we feel gratefulness towards, what God has done for us. So, really by expressing gratitude, we're affirming the good that we have come across in life. And that mindset, just that part right there, and I'll say it again, by expressing gratitude, we're affirming the good that we have come across in life. So it may not be something that happened in that moment, but there could be something that took place that made you reflect back over life and say, you know what, you have that moment of gratitude. Like, I appreciate where I am right now, even though it may not look the way I necessarily want it to look. I haven't reached the goal that I set, but I'm getting closer. My wife and I, we have these discussions all the time. We go, and both of us go through these moments of, man, when is it going to happen? When is that breakthrough going to come about? And after I get through and we get through talking about that, we start looking back and like, we did have, we've come a long way, and we still got room to grow. I'm not saying that, it's time to get stagnant or content with where we're at, but at the same time, we've come very far. So when you search for definitions of grateful and thankful, and you really look at it from, a spiritual side, you'll discover that you'll start living a life of gratitude the minute you become really fully aware of the goodness, and the goodness that is that God has provided for you, and you're able to appreciate that goodness without thinking in terms of, being a recipient or a giver. You're just thinking of just multiple times, just an overall general feeling of, I'm really in a good spot. Overall, if I had to write down my pros and cons, my pros outweigh my cons, my good outweigh my bad, my ups outweigh my downs. And for some people, it's just being realistic and being honest and, stepping outside of your feelings to just say, you know what, my life is a lot better than I have made it to sound like. And you start to really focus and centralize things on that. Really, when you look at thankfulness, it's really the moment that You have to think of, well, who the giver is. So who gave us that? Then what the specific gift is that they gave. And then, think about who receives the gift. And then you start focusing on, yourself as the recipient, and you give thanks to the giver. So it's like, God, I thank you for, my health. Now, when you say that, the connotation of, thanking for health is like, well, it is talking specifically, but there's an overall gist of it. So it's not just, thankful. And when I say gift can be a lot of things. As people look at spiritual gifts, and we're not talking spiritual gifts. We're talking a physical gift that you can, put in somebody's hands, that is right there in front of you. You can see it. This is not a faith or, a spiritual thing. This is basically saying, here's this thing that you have. So, when you go back and you look at that thing, I'm sure a lot of us can think of a gift that we've received. I think of, things that my wife has given me over the years, times that, she knew that there was a certain game that I wanted, and she came home with that game, or a certain pair of shoes that I liked. And she came home with that shoes. And I can remember when I look at those shoes and I think about, look at those shoes, man, I really like those shoes. And you think about, I remember who gave me those shoes. It was KK, or, things that my parents gave me. I can go back to when I was a kid. And I remember for one Christmas getting pretty much the entire He-Man toy set. I had every He-Man character that was available at the stores when my parents went and got it, including Snake Mountain and Castle Grayskull. I mean, I had vehicles, I had everything. I came downstairs that Christmas and I remember it. Now, back then, of course, I thought it was Santa Claus, but as I soon after realized that Santa Claus was my parents and had even a greater appreciation, I felt thankful for that. Now, when I step back and I look at all the greatness and all the goodness that I've been able to have, and look at what my kids there are and all that stuff. Now that's where I start looking at the grateful things. But when I can think of specific gifts that I've received and I know who gave them to me, that's really the part of thankfulness. So that's really the difference. And I wanted to make those, I want to really make those things pretty clear. So just to go back, rather than saying a quick thank you to a person who holds the door open for you, when you feel gratitude, that means that you're able to appreciate the abundance of positive things in your life, or the abundance of people in the world who are willing to be helpful. And then you start thinking like, well, when people are grateful, then their appreciation is often intentionally expressed through their actions rather than reciting thank you on autopilot. Now, that point is really, really where I want to key in on right here, because somebody does something for you, you just say thank you, and then you walk off. And, again, somebody holds the door open, you're not going to think about all the other things. You're going to say thank you. Now, when you're able to get to a place where somebody holds the door open and you may say thank you just from response, but if it causes you to go into, man, I've been having a really good day. I had somebody, I was running late to get to this appointment. And as I was driving here, I didn't catch any lights. The traffic that they said was going to be there had cleared up. I found a parking spot right in front. I was able to get right up, go through. Somebody held the door open. I had a whole bunch of stuff in my hands. Somebody held the door open for me. I was able to get to the meeting on time, did great in whatever the presentation was. I mean, you start thinking about all those, everything. You're like, I really had a good day. That's appreciation. That's feeling grateful. That is grateful right there, because it's a multitude of things that happened that were good for you. So again, it's not that quick thank you and then you move on. Somebody does something for you. All right, thank you. You move on. Grateful is all of those thank yous that you've told someone. You're thinking about, well, what happened during those times to make you feel thankful. That's grateful. That's where the differences really are. So, when you really start to dig into it, gratitude and gratitude, gratefulness, and I use those words interchangeably, obviously, just depending on what we're speaking about. But gratitude, it's going to grow over time. So, if you're leaving a job, and I've had this situation. So, you're leaving a job and the company that that you work for, they're going to throw you a goodbye party, whether it's a lunch or something like that. But they're going to acknowledge you and you're leaving. Now, it is a nice thing to do, but it probably won't impact you on a daily basis down the road. But then if you look at it from this perspective, now, if your manager has been providing you with positive letters of recommendation and has gone out of, his or her way to say, to make sure that you have a long-term success after leading the company, that is going to make a positive impact on your long-term professional well-being. That's going to help your career. So the idea of your peers or your team or whoever, the group that you work for in that company, they throw you that party and you thank them. And, for that day, for that moment, it's a great thing. And you may look back at it later and over time, you may think about it more and more, because especially if you go to a company or you think about other companies after that or before that, where you left and it was just, there was no, I won't say fanfare, but there was no sort of celebration or, recognition of the work that you've done and, the fact that you're leaving. So you think back and you're like, man, I was really grateful for that experience, because I didn't experience that anywhere else. So over time, you start to have a different thought process with it. But like I said, gratitude goes over time. But just think about that. Not only, they threw the party. Now with your manager, you get this party and that's great. And that celebrates, kind of that day and that moment, and, you move on. But then you've got a manager who acknowledged your work and also said, you know what, I want to give these letters of recommendation, because letters of recommendation, they last, throughout your career. You can always go back and pull those up and say, hey, I've got this letter from a previous manager. And for somebody to go out of their way to do that, that really is something that you're going to appreciate in a long-term phase. It is not something that you're just going to be like, that was cool, he did that or she did that, and move on, because that's a gift that keeps on giving. I mean, it truly is. And you don't see that a lot. So that says a lot about you as a person. And it shows that the act that they did shows they were great. They were gracious and grateful for the work that you put out there. So, it is definitely a good thing when something like that comes about, and it's going to make a positive impact on you long term. So if you think about it, you think about, well, when it comes to the second, third, and fourth time, that your manager who wrote those letters, they talked to another potential employer. Now your sense of gratitude for that manager continues to grow because they keep giving that effort. They're like, hey, yeah, you can have, anytime you need a recommendation, feel free to have, the hiring manager or the HR team call me. I'll be happy to give you a recommendation. So they will continue to speak on your behalf, even after you're long gone. And I've had those experiences. I mean, to this day, there's people I work with that I can go back to and say, hey, would you mind giving me a recommendation? And they'll do it without a problem. Not because, oh, Rickey's a nice person. It might be that, but it's because the work that I did was good. I'm not saying I was perfect and I didn't make mistakes, but I tried to make it where I'm good to work with. So they appreciated the job that I did while I was there. And I appreciate them for doing that. So that's gratitude. That is gratitude in itself. So, gratitude and the effects of gratitude, you can see them at an individual level as well as kind of a larger social level. Um, and the person who feels a sense of gratitude may not reciprocate back instantly, you know, but it's something that comes up, either through helping someone else in the future or just through thoughts and then reaching out later and saying, you know what, I just want to come and express my gratitude to you for what you've done. And then when you do stuff like that, it expands this, it expands this process of or this network of gratitude. When you're grateful and you're expressing that gratefulness, it just continues to move on and move on and move on, and it spreads out among those that you're around. And again, I'm not saying this, the whole purpose of this is not to limit the whole idea of being thankful. But just imagine if people around every day just walked with that spirit of gratefulness, just feeling gratitude. Just imagine that. Like, it's kind of like, when people say that happiness is temporary and joy is forever. It's kind of the same thing when you think of being thankful and having gratitude. Being thankful is, I won't say, I guess you can say it's temporary, but it's kind of at the moment. It's like right there at that point in time, but when you think through it a long term, there's appreciation. Like I said, when I mentioned, the toys, at the moment when I got those toys, I was excited. I was happy. I was thankful. I was like, I got these toys, blah, blah, blah. But my sense of gratitude grew over the years because my parents were notorious. They were notorious for making sure that, we had these great big Christmases. So when I think back and I'm like, man, I really appreciate what my parents did, all those years, all the years, another example, just the whole idea of them being Santa Claus. Now, as a kid, I didn't get it, but as I got older with my own kids, and then, now that my kids understand that there isn't a Santa Claus, and, we told some of them pretty early, but when you really step back and think about that, like the sacrifice that my parents did to carry on a myth. And, again, if you've got, I'm going to put a spoiler alert, about this. So, about Santa Claus. So this is a spoiler alert. If you got small kids, you may want to skip ahead or, pass this point up. And I say this because I know that there's still some people out there, but you really think about the sacrifice and I think about the sacrifice my parents did, going out, doing all the shopping they had to do, staying up late at night. I remember my dad used to pretend to be Santa Claus. He would come in and, he would put all these things together. I mean, putting bikes together. My mom is wrapping gifts. I mean, they're doing this on Christmas Eve. And I just remember like coming downstairs, and they're doing this for 4 kids. Like, wow, you think about that. And then now you get this expression of, they did it for years. And you think about that over the course of time, and it's like, you feel gratitude, right? So those moments, and it just made me think. I go back to, when I had this idea about what I want to talk about this week, because I try to I have a lot of things written out, and, this is what I want to talk about. But then sometimes it's like God leads me to talk about other things. And this is one of those times where God led me to talk about, other things, because that at that moment, I just felt like, I felt more than thankful when I sat during Thanksgiving. When I sat and I saw, all the people in our house, I mean, I'm talking about everybody at the house, and, just everybody's happy, or, even at that moment, and it may have been a temporary thing, but, smiling, just enjoying each other's company, again, eating good food, and, just seeing everybody together. When last year, we were wondering when we would be able to do this. And we took precautions. We had people take, we all took COVID tests, and we want to make sure, even, most of us, pretty much everybody has been vaccinated that came by. But we wanted to make sure, everybody, was being safe because we wanted to protect each other, protect ourselves and protect each other. But even in doing that, I still felt a sense again of gratitude because there was a time where I was like, man, I don't know when we're going to be able to come out and see each other. There was a time where, we would sit at home. It's like last year, March, and you got into the summer months, and it was like, you felt like the walls are closing in. It was like, when is this virus going to end? And, this isn't a message about taking a vaccine, nothing like that, but we didn't know. There were so many unknowns. I mean, even now, there's still some things that are still up in the air. There's new variants and all this stuff popping up. So that's why, you cherish those moments. You stay in a state of gratefulness. And that's where we were. That's where I am. Will I have moments of being thankful? Yeah, of course. But if you just walk in gratitude, and that's really what the point is let's try to walk in gratitude the same way as you try to live with joy and not just, living with, happiness. Because again, happiness is a feeling that's fleeting. When you got joy, it is truly everlasting. And if you got joy with gratitude, I mean, you've got something that even in your moments of being down, you still feel you can go through those things and you can draw back on, so many great things of what God has done. You read the gospel of Christ, the good news, there's a lot that you can be thankful for because you're thinking about the goodness that has taken place in your life. It's not just, oh, I had some good food yesterday, but you can go back in that instance and say, I'm really grateful for the meal I had yesterday at that fancy restaurant, not because, either I paid for somebody or somebody paid for me and there was a gift, it was because I have elevated to the place where I can afford to do things like that, because there was a point in time where I couldn't go to a fancy restaurant. I couldn't take my wife to a place where, you may spend a couple $100 a person to eat. Couldn't do that. But we're at a different place now. That's gratitude. It's like, wow, I can remember a time when we couldn't do that. I can remember a time when we were, really struggling financially, struggling in our marriage. And again, all the time I say this, and I always throw that disclaimer out there. I'm not saying that everything is perfect, but we've come a long way. That journey, that reminder of the journey and the appreciation there, that's gratitude. That's being grateful. Now, you may be able to pinpoint specific things and you feel thankful at that moment. But when you really think about the journey, and I guess that's where the gratefulness comes from. It's really the journey. It's like, wow, this is crazy. I think about the houses that we've owned and how each one of them has been different, but God has elevated us through the process. Individually, I'm thankful for the houses that we have. But if you think about the journey collectively, I feel a really a big sense of gratitude, because I understand there was a lot of things that took place. There's a lot of changes that we had to make. There was a lot of tears. There's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of seed that was sown in the process. So when you think about the process, there's gratitude in the process. There's appreciation there. So that's really what I wanted to focus on in this episode. I really think you guys got something. I really wanted to come from the heart with this one. And because I think it's important, being genuine and that's really what I want to be in this podcast. I try to look past. I try to look past and try to be an optimist. I try to, I should say I scratched that. I don't try. I continue working on being that. I continue to speak that. Positive things, positive affirmations. And some people think it's silly and all this and that, but I mean, if not, there's so many things going on in the world that you would lose your sense of joy. You would lose, your happiness. You would lose who you are. You lose so many things. There is no thankful. There is no grateful. You get to a place of complaining. You get to a place of, never satisfied with anything. Everything is bad. And then you find yourself, bitter, and some people alone. And, I choose not to live my life that way. And I hope that you guys are really looking at that and just thinking about how to internalize being grateful and let that be your guiding thing, knowing there's going to be moments of thankfulness that takes place. There's going to be moments when you say thank you and you appreciate that. I mean, we say thank you, God, all the time. But when you think about it in church, you think about when the pastor says, you think about the goodness of the Lord and you just want to say thank you. And everybody screams out, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. But when you start having those moments and you start shouting and really truly praising and worshiping him, that's not thankfulness, that's gratitude, because you start having these flashback moments like, Lord, you think about when everybody talk about the covering, being covered under the blood, and people say, I'm just thankful for the blood. No, I'm grateful for the blood. I am grateful for the blood. I'm grateful that I'm not the person that I was, when I was a kid. I'm grateful that I've grown, and I'm grateful for the experiences that I had, good and bad. I'm grateful. Because it helped me to be a better person. And it's the same thing with, and I hope that, I'm just grateful for the experiences that I've had, good or bad, because, that helped to shape who I am and helped me to get to this place today. So again, I just want to really thank everybody for joining. I hope that, I really hope that you hear my heart. And I know I say this a lot and I may repeat myself a few times because I get these thoughts when I get to going, especially with these episodes where it's just me, because I feel like it's more of an intimate thing. And that's why I wanted to come on with video. So for those that are listening through your podcast players or on the website, just know that you can also go to YouTube and you can, see me, which may be a good or bad thing. But you kind of see who I am. I'm just a regular dude. I'm just out here doing this because I love to do it. I love to talk. I love to help people. And, this to me is what it's about, being a kingdom heir. So I'm gonna close out like I always do. But before I do that, I just want to remind people that, the Airflow podcast is linked to the apparel company that my wife and I have. It's Billionaire Flow. Billionaire Flow was put together and established last year, and I guess we got trademarked and really established in the early part of the year around March or April. I really appreciate all the work and all the things that my wife has done to help me build this. We just redid the website a few weeks ago. We still have a sale going on right now. So if you go to the website, it's going to be going on through Sunday. So by the time this episode airs, and this is, airs as in AIR, and I've got to, again, say that because of the different variations of air that I use, but it will still be there. It's going on through Sunday the 5th. I may potentially extend it out because we've been getting a lot of hits on it. So I may extend it out a little bit more. But if you put in the code Airflow, all uppercase, when you check out, you'll get 20% off everything on the website. So again, that's billionaireflow.com. Here's one of the original t-shirts designs that we've had. This is the original logo. So, I've got more things up there, more than just t-shirts. We got hoodies. We've got a new logo design that's more of a, that's more of a specific thing. With the Billionaire Flow, we've got great products. We got collaborations with champions. So we got champion products on there. There's so many things, but I just wanted to, take some time, go there and check it out. I know a lot of people are looking for things to buy for the holidays, looking to support, businesses, Black businesses, small businesses in general. So give us a try, try us out, let me know what you think of the products. Again, and I mentioned this in the last episode I did, part of growing is, people being honest and being able to tell you the truth, but I think you'll find the prices are, compared to a lot of people out there doing it, prices are good. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to discount everything and I'm going to always run discount prices. As Fat Joe says, the price today ain't the price tomorrow. I'm not going to keep switching up prices, but the product is going to speak for itself, and we're pretty much comparable. So I don't want to sit here and take a lot of time justifying prices, but just go out, check us out. Let me know what you think. Again, the products are coming in. I know we were having some trouble when COVID first really hit, and getting some things delayed, but we're getting orders. Orders are getting out fast. They're getting to people in less than a week most times, depending on what it is. So, please let me know. We've got, embroidered items. We've got a lot of cool things. We've got things for, for the colder months, so just check us out. We're going to continue to expand that line, but I just want to put that out there, because everybody's been supportive. We've got so much support on both sides of it. So again, remember, part of being a kingdom heir is about living your life to the fullest. And, in this episode, we talked about gratitude. And as an heir, you were created to live with gratitude. And in that level of gratitude, you have to flow. And that flow is the blessings that were bestowed upon Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all that God provided for them. And they lived their lives with gratitude. So, as always, just continue to flow. God bless you all. We'll see you next time.